Forge Master of Fuses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526. Due to the tight time, heavy task and limited materials, the decoder made by Tang Fan inevitably looked a bit rough. For Zhao Jin, who was born in a mecha casting family, roughness and compromise were slightly equal to unprofessionalism. Therefore, Zhao Jin's face was inevitably a bit disgusted when he first started. That expression successfully angered Tang Fan, and there seemed to be a blazing fire burning in his beautiful big eyes. If it were back in those years on the Red Iron Star, with Tang Fan's temper, he would have snatched the decoder long ago. Song Si saw it, sighed, stepped forward, hugged Tang Fan's shoulders, and carefully kept a distance between Tang Fan and Zhao Jin. It is said that scholars look down on each other. In fact, the relationship between two excellent mecha foundry masters is not much better. At least, now, in front of the eyes, it is like this. Song Si looked at this and that, and felt his temples throbbing with pain. How can he break this crisis of secret war between mecha foundry masters? Waiting online, very urgent. Fortunately, before Song Si got too anxious, a turning point came. As a woman who has been on a level 9 planet for countless years, Tang Fan's decoder is as simple as her. Although the shell of the decoder looks a bit rough, every part inside is exquisite. Although some improvements have been made to save materials, it does not affect the function of the decoder at all. Such a delicate work made Zhao Jin, who always sneered at wild ways, finally restrain his expression and become cautious. He gently put the decoder on the small workbench he carried with him, took out his special tools, and disassembled the decoder without affecting the operation of the decoder. As the parts were peeled off one by one, the anger in Tang Fan's eyes also subsided little by little. Two excellent mecha foundries proved their strength through a work and won the respect of each other. Although it was a little late. Feeling the change in the atmosphere, Song Si breathed a sigh of relief, reluctantly loosened the restraint on Tang Fan, and gently pushed Tang Fan. Tang Fan took a step forward reluctantly, forced a smile, and looked at Zhao Jin. Senior, is there anything I can help you with? Zhao Jin, who is already immersed in research, heard Tang Fan's politeness, but did not take it to heart. He directly picked up the decoder and asked about the part he did not understand. The senior asked without any grudges, so Tang Fan was naturally embarrassed to be polite. He put aside his little knot and answered carefully. In the back and forth, the two thoughts collided fiercely, stirring up countless sparks, and the thinking gradually became clearer. While the problem was slowly melting, the gap also gradually disappeared. For a while, the pharmacists and mecha foundry masters were busy. Although the research results came one after another, the problems also came one after another. Tang Fan and Zhao Jin only lacked materials, metal detectors, and with more time and effort, they could always find substitutes and come up with solutions. But Tao Qingxi and Song Tong were different. Jim Field's experimental subjects were basically humans. This is embarrassing. Believe it or not, none of it is right. The two pharmacy geniuses almost cried. Chapter 527 Coordinates. Asking people who have been educated by the Alliance and follow the rules since childhood to conduct experiments on living people. This is simply challenging their moral bottom line. Don't do experiments. I always feel that something is missing. Tao Qingxi and Song Tong's three views were severely tested, and the two were entangled to the point of almost going bald. Fortunately, this entanglement ended with the end of Tang Fan and Zhao Jin's research work. This place where no one lives and no chickens lay eggs was finally connected to the star network and declared an end. The moment the signal stabilized, everyone on the entire Paradise Star spontaneously picked up their own light brains and contacted the most important person to them. Ms. Tao Qingxi naturally contacted Tao Bixi, and Song Tong contacted Li Bangsha. After listening to their explanations, the two masters of pharmacy spontaneously gave their own suggestions. Obey the law, everyone has a responsibility, and stay away from such inhumane human experiments. Why should a pure and innocent girl be stained with blood and become a demon like Jim Field? However, they didn't mind tasting Jim Field's research results. So, the two pharmacy geniuses successfully became human scanners of the research report, holding the research report in one hand and the camera in the other, flipping the pages and taking pictures. If they didn't suddenly remember that they could ask for help, the two girls would have had tendinitis sooner or later. Of course, in addition to the research report, the two of them would also take pictures of other things. For example, the white little bugs called energy-eating bugs that came out of Jim Field's body. However, even if they were connected to the internet, they still couldn't find relevant information about this little bug in the huge database of the star network. Humans are always full of curiosity about unknown things. Tao Bixie and Grandpa Li Bangsha are no exception. After seeing this new species, the two of them immediately had various questions about it through the star network. Where did this energy-eating bug come from? How does it absorb energy? What energy does it absorb? How can it be blocked from absorbing energy? One question after another directly confused Tao Kingxi and Song Tong. Because the energy-eating bug was dug out from Jim Field's body, Tao Kingxi had a very complicated feeling towards it. This feeling was fully conveyed to Song Tong. The two of them didn't even bother to study it, let alone look at it. Naturally, they didn't know much about its characteristics. Faced with various questions, the two of them looked at each other quickly. Relying on the fact that they were far away from the Emperor and separated by the star network, Tao Bixie and Li Bangsha couldn't do anything to them. The two simply spread their hands and threw out 4 words, "I don't know." The next second, the two of them hung up the video call at the same time. Tao Bixie and Li Bangsha looked at the black screen and were directly amused by their behavior. Isn't it just a star network? With the current scientific and technological level of the Alliance, these two naughty kids can't be caught? First determine the location. Xianzhou star region? That's not right. Savage Galaxy? That's not right either. The two pharmacy geniuses were stumped by this magical coordinate before they took the first step. They were not the only ones who were stumped by this question. The entire expeditionary force, as well as some knowledgeable people from the Blue Sea Mecha Academy, were also racking their brains over this coordinate. Chapter 528. This constantly shifting coordinate between the Xianzhou star region and the Savage Galaxy made everyone feel troubled. Marshal Song Yuanxi did not hide anything and directly fed back the news to Song Si. Song Si thought that once he was connected to the star network, he and his group would be saved. But he did not expect this to happen. Except for Zhao Jin, who was in a slightly complicated mood, the hearts of the others were as cold as being poured with a basin of cold water in the coldest days of winter. Even if Song Si had a good psychological quality, it took him several days to adjust himself and barely cheer up. Thinking about one thing every day will more or less yield some results. Tang Fan and Zhao Jin had different views on refining metals and decoders. Tao Kingxi and Song Tong had made great progress in genetic issues, and Major General Song Si finally figured out one thing. Since Jim Field's experiments were all captured by the Black Skull Star Pirates, and the Black Skull Star Pirates set up their base in the Savage Galaxy, then, the Savage Galaxy must have an entrance like the Xianzhou Star region. They may not be able to get out, but someone can get in. Song Si's idea was affirmed by Song Yuanxi. The Savage Galaxy was originally Song Yuanxi's territory, and everything was under Song Yuanxi's control. According to the activities of the Black Skull Star Pirates, it should not be too easy to investigate. Song Yuanxi led the team personally, and in just half a month, he found a piece of unfamiliar metal in a hidden cave in the Savage Galaxy. As an Alliance Marshal and an excellent starship pilot, Song Yuanxi recognized this pattern at a glance. It was the teleportation coordinate matrix that they liked and hated the most. Seeing this beautiful pattern, Song Yuanxi did not feel happy at all, but instead felt nauseous. There was no way. Marshal Song Yuanxi, who was not afraid of heaven or earth and was beaten down by mutant creatures, probably had the only weakness of being busy with the teleportation coordinate matrix. Not to mention experiencing it once, just looking at it, the dizziness, nausea, and weightlessness came up again all of a sudden. Whoever has tried it knows the taste. Anyway, Marshal Song Yuanxi was not going to try it. First, he was dizzy. Second, as a Marshal of the Alliance, he really couldn't leave. Although he couldn't go, it didn't mean that he didn't worry about his only child. Look, an expedition team composed of retired soldiers of the Expeditionary Army, led by Old Man Li Bangsha and Tang Gang, with an average age of nearly 100 years old, was established under the arrangement of Song Yuanxi. Song Yuanxi organized people. But to support so many people, even though Song Yuanxi was the Marshal of the Alliance, he still felt exhausted. However, it was not only Song Si who was trapped, but also the head of Tang's Mecha, Miss Tang Fan. In order to bring her back smoothly, Tang's mecha fully sponsored the supplies needed by the group. As long as the search and rescue team dared to say it, Tang's mecha would give it. Tang's mecha is rich and willful. What's more, the leader is also their Tang's mecha, so they will definitely use it on the blade. Don't take a needle or a thread from the alliance, and correspondingly, absolutely do not accept the constraints of any forces in the alliance. They had only one goal, to bring SYNOPSIS and Tang Fan back alive. They would do anything to achieve this goal. As the 3 Super S-level energy stones were put in, a soft white light slowly lit up, and the search and rescue team left the side of Song Yuanqi and others who were seeing them off. Chapter 529 Play. The Black Skull Pirates had their reasons for setting up their base in the Savage Galaxy. In addition to the fact that the Savage Galaxy is vast and sparsely populated, it is also because it is relatively close to the Paradise Star, making it more convenient to hand over tasks. Of course, in order to complete the task quickly, efficiently and economically, the Black Skull Pirates spent a lot of effort to repair this passage. Although no one has walked this road for many years, compared to the bumpy journey of SYNOPSIS and his team, the road from the Savage Galaxy to the Paradise Star is simply a thoroughfare. In addition, SYNOPSIS side has access to the internet, so it is relatively convenient to contact each other. In just half a month, the two teams successfully joined forces. In front of so many people, Tang Gang didn't give Tang Fan any face at all. He poured out all the complaints he had been piling up for half a year, and didn't take a breath or drink water for more than an hour. That look was quite like a parent scolding his naughty child. Tang Fan was scolded so much that he could only ask for help from Mr. Li Bangsha, who was standing beside him. But the old man not only did not smooth things over for Tang Fan, but also added fuel to the fire and added insult to injury. That scene. Thinking back on it after so many years, Miss Tang Fan couldn't help blushing. A complete black history, isn't it? In the end, it was Major General SYNOPSIS who couldn't stand it anymore and handed Tang Gang a cup of hot water, saving his poor little girl. While Tang Gang was catching his breath, Tang Fan quickly greased the soles of his shoes, and ran away. He ran straight to the laboratory and made the laboratory his home. If it weren't for the guise of delivering materials, Tang Gang would have had a hard time even seeing his daughter. This belated revenge is simply amazing. A complete show. In order to avoid being held accountable by Tang Gang later, Tang Fan really spent a lot of thought on the decoder. With the support of the materials brought by Tang Gang, various upgraded versions of the decoder emerged one after another, and the signal on Tang Fan's end became increasingly stable. Marshal Song Yuanqi and 8 data analysts studied the signal for nearly a month, constantly building models, and really let him find a little bit of pattern. When the signal was closest to the Savage Galaxy, Song Yuanqi, Marshal of Song, asked someone to bring a batch of supplies. After confirming that everyone's life and property were not threatened, Song Yuanqi, Marshal of Song, really put his heart back in his stomach. In addition to feeding at a fixed time and place every month, and checking the data analysis, the rest of the time, just like nothing happened, doing whatever he had to do. As expected of a father and son, Song Yuanqi, Marshal of Song, was not in a hurry, and SYNOPSIS, who had food and drink, was even less anxious. Tang Fan and others also had their own projects. SYNOPSIS, with his own guards, ate and drank every day except for daily training. It's not a big deal to do this all day long. Seeing that the brothers were about to be exhausted, SYNOPSIS couldn't sit still. Taking advantage of the opportunity that Tang Gang was in charge of the Paradise Star, this guy actually left a letter and took his own guards to explore under the guise of training. This kind of simple reconnaissance mission is usually given to new recruits who have just joined the army not long ago. I didn't expect SYNOPSIS to take the initiative to grab the job. It can be seen how bored SYNOPSIS has been recently. Tang Gang looked at the small note left by SYNOPSIS and couldn't help shaking his head, letting him go. With Tang Gang's tacit consent, SYNOPSIS really gave himself a task to expand the scope of the Elysium Star in circles. Exploring while drawing maps and so on, it's really fun. Chapter 530 Problem. This vacation-like life came to an abrupt end in the second month of SYNOPSIS' new business development. It was not that SYNOPSIS was tired of playing such small games, but that he saw a familiar figure on a desolate asteroid 100 light-years away from the Elysium Star. All those scenes of the Alliance fighting against mutant creatures circled in his mind like a revolving lantern. Major General SYNOPSIS, who is always good at managing his expression, changed his face in an instant. Song-si did not even have the courage to land on this planet, but with trembling hands, he dialed Tang Gang's optical computer number. At the moment the video was connected, when the dense mutant creatures and the desolate planet on the screen appeared in Tang Gang's eyes, Tang Gang could not sit still. Don't act rashly, I will immediately ask Mr. Li Bangsha for a batch of medicines and rush to help. Song-si touched his back teeth and shook his head. How much raw materials does the old man have, and how much medicine can be produced? When Tang Gang heard this, his expression was stern. What do you mean? Song-si nodded and said affirmatively, a large part of Jim Field's experiments require mutants. I originally thought that he gave up his research after the passage between him and the Alliance was forced to be cut off. Now it seems that I was careless. Jim Field was crazy enough to artificially raise mutants in his own territory. Once there's a first, there must be a second, and if there is no third, it will not be a ritual. Since Jim Field dared to raise mutants, it is impossible for him to raise them only for a time and a place. The Alliance has cut off the passage for these years. If Jim Field does not stop his research, the number of mutants here will probably far exceed their imagination. No wonder Song-si asked about the number of raw materials and medicines as soon as he opened his mouth. In an instant, Tang Gang's expression became particularly serious. Although I don't know how far this place is from the Alliance, we can use the decoder to get the star network signal, so it shouldn't be too close. You and I are both very clear about the harm of mutant creatures and the speed of their spread. If we don't stop them as soon as possible, they will soon endanger the lives of you, your comrades, and the researchers on the Elysium star. Even if we find a way to leave here and get rid of them temporarily, who can guarantee that these bugs won't follow us? For you, me, and my family, as well as the safety of life and property of the people in the Alliance, we can't let mutant creatures spread. If there are conditions, we must go ahead. If there are no conditions, we must create conditions and go ahead. Song-si smiled bitterly and nodded without speaking. Tang Gang didn't care. He quickly clicked on his optical brain and quickly mobilized the materials needed to fight the mutant creatures. After everything was in place and the personnel were assembled, Tang Gang said to Song-si on the other end of the computer, the supplies are ready. Do you want to be the vanguard or should I be? Song-si glanced at the desolate planet not far away and pursed his lips. Logistics and supplies are too trivial. They are not my cup of tea. I'd rather be the vanguard. Tang Gang sighed and rolled his eyes. Can you change your habit of being afraid of heavy tasks? Song-si spread his hands and said shamelessly, I'm sorry. It's natural. I can't change it for a while. Please bear with me. That carefree look made Tang Gang laugh. Habit, Song-si nodded, that's what you do to me. In an instant, Tang Gang felt that his understanding of Song-si had deepened a little. Chapter 531 Comfort. It's just a joke. For Song-si and Tang Gang, two people who are strict with themselves, it's not an easy task whether fighting against mutant creatures or managing logistics on the Paradise Star. The two people are like high-speed spinning tops, spinning non-stop. 10 days later, Song-si finally wiped out all the mutant creatures on the planet and destroyed their nests at the cost of 7 people being slightly injured, 3 people being seriously injured, and half of the mechas being damaged. But when he looked up and saw the other 2 planets not far away without a trace of green, the joy in Song-si's heart disappeared. Feeling the solemn atmosphere around Song-si, everyone's eyes couldn't help but glance behind them. The afterglow of the sunset spread on this barren land, and the 2 barren planets covered with black dots were like 2 mountains, pressing on everyone's hearts. This is not the most terrible thing. The terrible thing is that they don't know if there are more barren planets behind these 2 barren planets. The unknown is the most terrifying. Although they were mentally prepared, when they really faced it, the bitterness in their hearts still came out involuntarily. As the toughest bone in the Alliance, the most elite part of the expeditionary force, Song-si's personal guards are in a state of walking sideways in the Alliance. Such a droopy moment is really the first time in history. It happened that when the morale was at its lowest, Tang Fan, who was escorted to this desolate planet with supplies, saw it. At a glance, Tang Fan understood why Tang Gang specifically asked her to transport supplies. This father who had let her go in the early years but now wanted to put her on his belt, did he expect this to happen and specially send her to ease the atmosphere? But she is really not good at things like creating an atmosphere. Tang Fan thought for a long time with his back teeth, and decided to catch the thief first. She walked gently to Song-si, put her arms around his shoulders, patted him gently, and said softly, "You've done a good job, Song Si, who was suddenly hugged by someone, stiffened at first. When he realized that the person hugging him was the little girl he had been thinking about, his whole body relaxed. The head that was used to being held high rested softly on Tang Fan's shoulder, and murmured, "Really?" Tang Fan raised his hand and rubbed Song Si's soft black hair, hummed heavily, and then said, "You have snatched a planet back from the mutants and pushed the front line forward a big step. You should be proud and proud. Eliminating mutants is not a matter of a day or a night, but a great cause. You have taken the most important and difficult step. I know that the rest of the way is still long. But you have to believe that I am behind you, and there are thousands of people in the Alliance. You are not fighting alone." Tang Fan's voice was not loud, but unusually firm, and unknowingly attracted everyone's attention. More than 20 tough guys looked at each other, and their faces blushed at the same time. Being defeated by frustration and being seen by a girl who was much younger and weaker than them was embarrassing enough. Unexpectedly, they were comforted by her. How could these 7-foot-tall men put their faces? However, they were not the most embarrassing ones. The most embarrassing one was still lying in the arms of the little girl, refusing to look up. Is it really okay for a Major General of the Alliance to act like a hooligan in public? Chapter 532 Thin Skin. Tang Fan rarely saw Song Si's depressed look, so he subconsciously reached out to him. This simple comfort became particularly ambiguous because of Song Si's actions. But the simple Tang Fan didn't notice it at all, until everyone cast meaningful glances at her. She realized something belatedly. The little girl's face flushed. She hurriedly pushed away Song Si, who was leaning on her shoulder, covering her face and embarrassed to see people. Song Si felt very uncomfortable when his good thing of having a soft jade and warm fragrance in his arms was exposed. Facing a group of culprits, Song Si naturally didn't have a good face. Feeling Song Si's sharp eyes, everyone immediately restrained their faces of watching the show, tactfully wiped the soles of their shoes, and slipped away. Learning from others can know the gains and losses. With a small knife and pearls in front of them, they dare not touch Song Si's tiger whiskers casually and be the first bird to be beaten. Who knows how many tricks this guy has yet to use? Seeing that everyone around him had left, Song Si finally calmed down and hugged his little girl to coax her. But not everyone is as thick-skinned as Song Si. No matter how Song Si coaxed her, the thin-skinned Miss Tang Fan never dared to look at others. As long as she made eye contact with others, she felt that they were laughing at her. In order not to add trouble to herself and others, Miss Tang Fan ignored Song Si's objection and embarked on the journey to Paradise Star 2 hours later. No matter how Song Si calculated, he only came to one conclusion: his little girl only stayed on this desolate planet for more than 3 hours. Song Si naturally would not count this account on Tang Fan's head. But the group of people who surrounded him and ruthlessly exposed him were all remembered by him. In the face of a powerful enemy, although he would not start an internal struggle, he would not reduce the accounts that should be settled. Since everyone has the energy to eat melons, they must also have the energy to take care of mutant creatures. It just so happens that Tang Fan sent the Night Owl and Paralysis Potion, and there are still many attack mechas, so everyone will consciously divide into 2 teams and take turns to work. Target? Naturally, the 2 barren planets that have just been discovered. The time requirement is not too harsh. 3 days should be about the same. After all, everyone knows the reproductive capacity of mutant creatures. If they are eliminated earlier, the losses can be reduced, and maybe the situation of the war can be changed. Everyone is the elite among the elites. If there are conditions, they must go up, and if there are no conditions, they must create conditions and go up. Looking at a certain major general who spoke with certainty and high-sounding words, everyone was itching. If they couldn't beat them, they really wouldn't mind committing a crime. It's just a joke. As for such a personal vendetta, on this day, the soldiers of the personal guard deeply realized the degree of Song Si's black belly. I thought that after 3 days of hard work, this matter would be turned over. Unexpectedly, Comrade Tang Gang, who was far away on the Elysium Star, was not happy after hearing about this, and he withheld their supplies for 3 days. So, after fighting for 3 days and 3 nights, they still had to go hungry. Whoever tries it will know how it feels. Under the double attack, the guards finally learned their lesson and knew that the thin-skinned girl was the one who should not be provoked in this team. She was not only the Achilles heel of Major General Song, but also the Achilles heel of the old Fox Tang Gang. However, when they were holding the broken mechas and couldn't find anyone to repair them. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, It means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Mineral Deposits. In order to make it reasonable for her to hide from people, Tang Fan was not idle. The mecha materials delivered by the Alliance were delayed. She used the excuse that a good cook cannot cook without rice and needed to rely on her own efforts. She took the new map provided by SYNOPSIS, followed SYNOPSIS steps, and became an explorer, aiming directly at the various mineral deposits hidden in the Sea of Stars. As for what happens after the mineral deposits are discovered, don't ask. If you ask, it's first come first served. It was not until this time that everyone remembered that this mecha casting master was also a money grubber who loved to buy ore planets. It was precisely because Tang Fan had the experience of buying many ore planets that he was really good at finding mineral deposits. In just half a month, 7 or 8 mineral deposits were found. Although they were all ordinary ores, in this situation where everything was lacking, the role that these ordinary ores could play was not necessarily worse than those precious ores. Besides, mosquito legs are also meat. Didn't you see that Comrade Zhao Jin's eyes had begun to shine? It's all because of the lack of materials. You know, there are not as many mecha foundries on site as everyone imagines, and there are even fewer high-level mecha foundries. Tang Fan hid away, and everyone naturally turned their attention to Zhao Jin. Zhao Jin's workload in the past half-month is completely equivalent to that of the past half-year. The various materials he has added are countless. Seeing that the materials in his space are almost exhausted, a genius like Zhao Jin will also be worried. Hearing that Tang Fan has discovered a mineral deposit, this guy ran towards Tang Fan. On the one hand, it was to avoid being idle. On the other hand, it was naturally to make up for the materials he had subsidized. But what Zhao Jin didn't expect was that the mineral deposit was detected, and Tang Fan didn't hide it, but it was not so easy to turn the mineral deposit into materials. Not only did Zhao Jin not make up for it, but he subsidized more materials and energy, manufactured a robotic arm, and invested in the great cause of mining. Moreover, mining the ore buried deep underground is only the first step of a long journey. Crushing, screening, enriching, refining, smelting. The metals produced in this way may not necessarily meet the requirements of Comrade Zhao Jin, the pride of heaven. Comrade Zhao Jin, who is used to seeing good things, has very demanding requirements for metals. In order to meet his requirements, Miss Tang Fan even turned into a metallurgical worker. Every day, she did nothing but made the materials he needed. Over time, Miss Tang Fan's metallurgical technology has made great progress. But Zhao Jin is so good. Except for the part of the material with mutant biological extracts, he is always finding faults most of the time. If it weren't for the timely supply of Marshal Song Yuanxi once a month, Miss Tang Fan, who was so angry at Zhao Jin's reluctant to accept face, would probably give up. As the Marshal of the Alliance, Song Yuanxi's overall view is obviously much higher than that of ordinary people. After receiving the report from SYNOPSIS and Tang Gang, Song Yuanxi knew the seriousness of the matter. He knew better what would happen if he put this situation before those politicians. It was impossible to allocate supplies. But it was also impossible to give up the rescue. Song Yuanxi could only prepare various supplies out of his own pocket. Chapter 534 Cruel Beauty. Although Song Yuanxi was a marshal, he was not rich because he had been earning a salary all his life. It takes time to raise funds, and it takes more time to purchase. As time goes by, it takes a little longer. As soon as the first batch of supplies was sent out, Song Yuanxi began to worry about the funds needed for the second batch of supplies. Fortunately, Zhao Jingshu soon heard the news and directly transferred a sum of money from the account of Tang's Mecha, which solved Song Yuanxi's urgent need. With these 2 batches of supplies, the children in another space have a much better life, and the progress bar has also been properly accelerated. Look, the supply of paralysis potion has at least been continued. As for Tang Fan and Zhao Jin, although they cannot guarantee that all mechas can be repaired in time, more than half of them can be put into normal use, which is barely enough. With guaranteed logistics, SYNOPSIS and his team are also more motivated. In a month and a half, it can be said that they have fought hard to snatch back 18 planets from the mutants. Just when everyone thought that the dawn of victory was just around the corner, an accident suddenly happened. Accompanied by a familiar noise, A black shadow appeared behind Song Si and others. Song Si stared at the unique black shadow for a long time, until a big hole was torn in the sky below the black shadow, revealing part of its true body. Song Si suddenly realized that the bottom of the giant battleship looked like this. He had learned something new. And the sound that he had always felt familiar was the sound of a starship landing. Song Si narrowed his eyes slightly, and the light energy cannon in his hand was aimed at the bottom of the battleship without hesitation. Not only did he aim at it himself, but he also commanded his brothers to set up their weapons one by one. The moment the battleship's luggage compartment partition opened, more than 20 people pulled the trigger at the same time, and lights of various colors gathered together. 1 + 1 is greater than 2. More than 20 light energy shells were fired at close range, layered on top of each other. Even if it was a planet, it would shake 3 times. The solidity of a giant starship is not as good as that of a planet. Moreover, Song Si, who was familiar with its internal structure, attacked the luggage compartment partition that had been opened. Under the action of the light energy cannon, 1/3 of the cabin of the giant starship melted into dark liquid. The upper part lost its support and sank suddenly, making a loud noise and bringing up countless dust. One by one, burning black spherical objects scattered with cosmic dust. At the moment when the burning thing fell, Song Si's face changed. Zion Audio pointed at the thing and murmured in disbelief, "Insect nest." Song Si slapped him on the head and said viciously, "Why are you still in a daze when you know it? Hurry up and move." While speaking, Song Si had already opened the space buckle, replaced the energy stone for his light energy gun, and started moving. No one knows how fast the mutant creatures reproduce better than them. There is only one best way to stop this thing from spreading like a disaster. Do your best to stop them in midair. The soldiers came to their senses and followed Song Si's steps, aiming at the insect nests in the sky and mechanically pulling the triggers of the light energy guns. Lights of various colors intertwined, with a cruel beauty, but no one appreciated it. Chapter 535 Acquaintance. On the right side of the luggage compartment partition of the giant battleship is the escape pod, and on the left side is the starship's drive. After being tossed around by Song Si and others, both parts suffered from the disaster. The drive was destroyed, and the escape pod could not be opened. The people on the starship panicked all of a sudden. The most terrifying thing was that a worm nest was brought into the starship's cabin by the light energy cannon. Although most of the worm nests were destroyed by the light energy cannon, the momentum of rapid reproduction after that small part of the worm nest took root was enough to make the people in the battleship in a hurry. For a time, both inside and outside the battleship were caught in a battle against mutant creatures. This battle lasted for a whole day and night. In the end, nearly 1/3 of the damaged worm nests were scattered to various planets near Song Si and others. Most of these planets were barren planets that Song Si had snatched back from mutant creatures. Although the loss was not large, thinking that his hard work for more than a month had come to nothing, Song Si's face was pulled longer than a donkey. Song Si, who was so angry that he had nowhere to vent, could only blame the group of people in the giant battleship and the master behind them. Song Si notified Tang Fan to lead people to clear the insect nest that fell on the barren planet, and he took his personal guards and went straight to the battleship above his head. Although the insect nest was brought by this battleship, the personnel on the battleship were not used to dealing with mutants. In the time that Song Si had destroyed 2/3 of the insect nest, this group of people was unable to completely eliminate the mutants that had bred in most of the insect nest. Seeing this group of people and mutants entangled in a hurry, Song Si, who had always been more upright than his appearance, did not feel any sympathy, and even had the leisure to look around. It is said that there must be something hateful about pitiful people. But Song Si fully realized this sentence in this group of people. This action looks familiar to me, but I recognize this set of actions. It is a high-level physical action required for senior students of the First Alliance Academy. Fat Tiger, you are from the First Alliance Academy, right? Do you know them? Although I don't want to admit it, I really know a few of them. Which ones? The one with silver hair, blue eyes, and looking at people with his nose is the head of our grade, the son of the director of the Central Army Logistics Department. The one with brown hair, black skin, and staring at me is his most loyal lackey, my classmate. Fat Tiger named several people in one breath. Basically, they all came from the First Alliance Academy, and they all had a little relationship with the Central Army. As smart as Song Si was, he saw the trick in it at once and narrowed his eyes. He thought that this huge disaster was just a farce made by Jim Field, who was eager for immortality. The culprit had been killed. He only needed to eliminate the remaining mutants and find a way back to the Alliance, and the matter would be over. He never expected that what he saw was just the tip of the iceberg. The insect nest, the Central Army. When these things surfaced little by little, Song-Si felt that he seemed to have seen the most corrupt and ugly side of the Alliance. Song-Si did not speak, but silently opened a light brain, recorded the scene in front of him, and sent it to Song Yuanqi. Just clicking send, such a simple action, seemed to have exhausted all of Song-Si's strength. After sending the message, he leaned against the wall quietly, motionless. Chapter 536 Understand. Song-Si was not feeling well, and Song Yuanqi, who received the news, was not much better. As the Marshal of the Alliance, he had been exposed to much more things than Song-Si, and had a deeper understanding of the shape of the Alliance. Although he had doubts long ago, when the reality was placed in front of Song Yuanqi, he was still uncomfortable. After a long while, he finally caught his breath and replied to Song-Si with 3 words. Song-Si, who was leaning against the wall, took a deep breath and turned on his light brain, but only saw one sentence, I know. God knows how hard Song-Si tried to control his urge to spit out sweet words. Ever since he recognized that the silver-haired, blue-eyed, and habitually looked at people with his nose, it was the little guy from the family of the director of the Central Army Logistics Department. After understanding the meaning, the first person he thought of in his heart was his biological father, who had worked hard for the country and the people for half his life. But his father was so good that he sent him away with 3 words. A nameless anger crept up to Song-Si's heart. Feeling the flames in Song-Si's eyes, the soldiers couldn't help but shudder, hold their breath, and reduce their presence. Everyone knows the principle of shooting the first bird to stick its head out. But they seem to have forgotten that there is something in this world called artillery fire coverage. Song-Si, who was furious but had nowhere to vent, used this skill without hesitation. The sentence I want a complete confession within 30 minutes successfully drove the soldiers crazy. Anyone who has tried it knows how difficult mutants are. It is even more difficult to get a complete confession from a group of professionally trained people. Even Zaya Adeo, who thinks highly of himself, couldn't help but frown. The soldiers who were sticking to the wall and wishing to be as far away from the battle as possible immediately joined the melee with a howl. What is the meaning of a higher-ranking official crushing a person? Today, they finally understood it thoroughly. Song-Si couldn't do anything to Song Yuanqi, and the soldiers couldn't do anything to Song-Si. The frustration was exactly the same. Song-Si's evil fire, through such a simple sentence, successfully passed on to all the soldiers. The innocent soldiers poured their evil fire on the mutant creatures all over the warship. In order to save time, they even used paralysis potions. As a result, the scene immediately became one-sided. The mutant creatures were quickly wiped out by the soldiers. These things that were particularly disgusting in the eyes of others were cute credit points in the eyes of Song-Si. He generously took out a space buckle, took the initiative to follow the soldiers, and took on the task of cleaning the battlefield. When the bodies of the mutant creatures were all put into the space buckle, the warship suddenly became spacious and bright. Chen Boxiao, who always looked down on people, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when facing this scene. However, when a pair of cold energy forbidden handcuffs were handcuffed to his wrists, Chen Boxiao realized that he seemed to be too happy too early. Song-Si, what do you mean? Chen Boxiao's words had not just fallen when he was hit in the stomach. Zaya Adeo used all his strength to punch Chen Boxiao, not only lowering his noble head, but also bending his waist. Satisfied with Chen Boxiao's embarrassed look, Zaya Adeo rubbed his wrist and curled his lips in satisfaction. Monkey squatted down and patted Chen Boxiao's face, grinning, our boss's name is not something that cats and dogs are worthy of calling. Understand? Chapter 537 Dumbfounded. As the son of the director of the Central Army Logistics Department, Chen Boxiao has been pampered, worshipped, and coaxed since he was a child, and has never suffered such humiliation. The monkey's words were like a slap in the face, hitting him hard, making his eyes red and furious. He struggled to stand up, but was ruthlessly knocked to the ground by the monkey. The moment Chen Boxiao fell to the floor, in addition to the physical trauma, it was more of a blow to his self-esteem. But when he noticed the expressions of the people around him, neither of them seemed to matter. It was an expression that Chen Boxiao was very familiar with. It was the expression that he usually had on his face, looking down on all living things. At this moment, Chen Boxiao suddenly understood his situation. There are always places in the world where the sun does not shine. The son of the director of the Central Army Logistics Department is not good at everything. At least, in this place where birds don't shit, turtles don't lay eggs, and even the star network signal is so weak that it is almost non-existent, it is not good in front of the youngest major general of the alliance. If Song Si hadn't spoken, this group of veterans, whose physical and mental strength far exceeded his own, would not take him seriously, whose mental strength was A level and whose physical strength barely reached B level. Chen Boxiao, who had stood on the altar for so many years and looked down on everyone, finally panicked the moment he fell from the altar. It was precisely because he had been high above that he knew more clearly the mentality of the high gods. They never cared about the opinions of ants. They were happy to see ants struggling desperately in the sea of suffering. They didn't mind at all to take away the life-saving straw of ants. They would rather gently push the ants when they were about to reach the shore, so that they could return to the sea of suffering again. Thinking about the things he had done countless times, which happened to him little by little, the anger in Chen Boxiao's eyes was quickly replaced by panic. Noticing the change in Chen Boxiao's eyes, Xia Adao and Monkey couldn't help but feel happy. They knew that Chen Boxiao would compromise one day, but they didn't expect that this day would come so soon. The two exchanged glances and took the opportunity to interrogate this young man who had poor stress resistance. You don't know until you ask, and you'll be shocked when you ask. It turned out that this young man who didn't know the suffering of the people was not the person in charge of this mission at all. He was spoiled by his family and didn't know how high the sky was. He was criticized by his leader and ran away from home with a glass heart. Who knew that this guy's luck was so bad that he just happened to catch up with this? Faced with such a magical turn, Xia Adao and Monkey looked at each other and were dumbfounded for a while. Seeing that the stipulated time was getting closer and closer, the two could only walk to Song Si with their heads down and apologize. Seeing that his left and right arms were defeated, Song Si laughed instead of being angry. After returning 7 times the gravity room, 2 hours, as soon as the words fell, there was a gasp around. Although Xia Adao and Monkey's expressions were ugly, they still agreed. Working under Song Si, you are not afraid of scolding or punishment. Scolding and punishment prove that you can still be saved. If this ancestor has a cold face, says nothing, and ignores you, whoever has tried it knows how it feels. As soon as Xia Adao and Monkey accepted the punishment, Song Si immediately gave them some advice. The whole warship is in chaos, and even I smell like a mutant creature. Hearing the music, one can understand the elegant meaning. Song Si only said the first half of the sentence, and Xia Adao and Monkey came to their senses, and their eyes converged on a certain place. To be precise, it was on a certain person. Chapter 538 Physical Discomfort. That was a woman that people could not forget. Her cloud-like hair softly held her beautiful face, making her look even more delicate. Her thick eyebrows, big eyes, and high nose bridge were like an artist's chisel, perfectly carved on her face. Even though the corners of her eyes had already deposited some traces of time, she still had an attraction that ordinary people could not reach. A white long-sleeve dress with a deep V design, revealing a great cleavage, paired with a black lotus leaf skirt, perfectly showed her slender legs, and her slender and well-proportioned figure was hard not to be noticed. Following her legs down, there was a pair of 10-centimeter high, glittering silver high heels. After everyone had been fighting with mutants for a whole day, even the Alliance Major General Mr. Song Si could not avoid the smell of mutants. But look at this lady on stilts, with exquisite makeup, clean and tidy clothes, without a single wrinkle, a faint scent of perfume on her body, and an expression that was calm and composed beyond the ordinary. This was intriguing. Chen Boxiao's brain, which had been used as a decoration for decades, finally came into use and started to think. When he figured out the key, his face suddenly turned livid. Many details that he had overlooked suddenly had different meanings. He, who always thought highly of himself, turned out to be just a shield for others. And he needed others' reminders to see this matter clearly. Chen Boxiao's livid face suddenly became darker than the bottom of a pot. He stared at the culprit who made him a joke, wishing he could burn 2 holes in her body. However, Maya Smith was much calmer than Chen Boxiao. Even if she felt everyone's eyes on her, she was not panicking. She calmly brushed her hair and said with a smile, "You look at a girl like this, it's not the behavior of a gentleman." After that, she didn't forget to wink at Song Si. Receiving a wink from an ant with wrinkles at the corners of her eyes, Song Si was simply stunned. As soon as he drank the drinking water, it immediately broke free from the constraints of his mouth and fell into the embrace of Mother Earth. Then, a series of heart-wrenching coughs came out of Song Si's mouth, as if he wanted to cough out his internal organs. He barely stopped coughing, but a burst of turbid air rushed up his throat. Ugh, just one syllable was better than 1,000 words, and successfully changed Maya Smith's face. Chen Boshao, who had been lowering his head, couldn't help but raise his head when he heard the voice. When he saw Maya Smith's face that was as black as ink, the depression in his heart suddenly dissipated a lot, and a heartfelt word came out of his mouth. Ms. Maya Smith, this is the interstellar age where the strong are respected, not some period of the Earth age. Your moral kidnapping behavior of forcing men to serve women under the guise of gentlemanly manners will no longer work. In addition, please have some self-knowledge. Not everyone is like those old men in the military who will buy into your tricks. We young people don't have as good an appetite as they do. We can't chew old bones, and we can't accept the seductive glances of an old woman of our mother's generation. This will only make us physically uncomfortable and nauseous. For the future of the Alliance, please be kind and look in the mirror. Thank you. Chapter 539, Unable to See Through. Song Si had never thought highly of a young man in the capital star. Song Si had no good impression of Chen Boshao, who looked down on people. But when he heard what he said and looked at Maya Smith's face, which was as dark as ink, Song Si suddenly felt that this guy was not as useless as he imagined. At least, in the skill of mouth cannon, the young man was still remarkable. Chen Boshao brought out all the things that women, especially women like Maya Smith, fear the most. He kept calling her mother's generation an old woman, and by the way, he also mentioned the old men in the military. All the things that Maya Smith tried so hard to hide were revealed by him. Maya Smith's seductive eyes were completely erased from Song Si's mind. He now had only one thought in his mind: who were the big men in the military who bought into Maya Smith's tricks? Maya Smith would definitely not give him an answer. But Chen Boshao was not sure. For the Alliance, Song Si decided to sacrifice himself. He winked at Xiao Adao, asking Xiao Adao to take the man away quickly. He took a step forward and stood between Maya Smith and Chen Boshao. Feeling Maya Smith's poisonous gaze, Song Si couldn't help but shudder. He barely controlled his expression, smiled and nodded at Maya Smith, and took the initiative to greet her. Ms. Maya Smith, 7 words, with 1,000 twists and turns, are very interesting. Maya Smith tasted something, quickly retracted her gaze from Chen Boshao, and looked at Song Si with a smile on her face. It's a great honor to hear my name from Major General Song. Feeling Maya Smith's face-changing skills faster than turning a book, Song Si's admiration for her rose spontaneously. This expression management is simply amazing. If it weren't for the calmness in her eyes, he almost thought that this woman had a little unspeakable little thoughts about him. Women in the Smith family are never easy to mess with. It is not easy to make such a pair of eyes stained with love. However, it is not that difficult to make Maya Smith hate him. After all, Chen Boshao achieved this achievement with just a few words. His behavior of rejecting Maya Smith with actions may have been remembered by her. However, Maya Smith did not show it. Perhaps, what Maya Smith showed was not all her true thoughts. It was what she wanted him to see. Song Si narrowed his eyes, restrained his emotions, and put on the number 1 expression he usually used to entertain guests. Ms. Maya Smith is too modest. Ms. Maya Smith has made great contributions to cultivating talent like Professor Anna Smith and Mr. Willie Smith. Ms. Maya Smith has made great contributions to the Alliance and should be remembered by the Alliance. These words were said by Song Si with deep meaning. Maya Smith did not expect that Song Si could connect them to Anna and Willie just by name. One made great contributions, and the other made great contributions to the Alliance made Maya Smith's heart beat fast. Does this young Major General in front of her really know something, or is he testing her? Maya Smith was really confused for a moment. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540 Uneasiness. Song Si said that Maya Smith cultivated Anna Smith and Willie Smith, and that was not an empty statement. As one of Quinn Smith's 18 children, Maya Smith, who was only 7 years old, saw through the fact that Quinn Smith was lazy, ignorant, and arrogant. But she was young and held back, and never said a word about her father. It was not until she was 15 years old and was admitted to the first college of the Alliance. After she felt that she had the ability to be independent, she tried every means to plot against her honest mother, and gradually saw the true face of Quinn Smith, and became disappointed with Quinn Smith step by step. Of course, Maya Smith, who was unfathomable in her scheming, also had miscalculations. For example, she did not expect that her honest mother, who was dragging 4 burdens, could actually find a new partner. She also did not expect that she would abandon her children and choose to remarry. Just when Maya Smith was about to graduate, her mother left without saying goodbye. The burden of the family suddenly fell on this girl who was only 19 years old. Surprisingly, Maya Smith did not give up her siblings, nor did she give up her studies. Although the 4 siblings had a hard life, they grew up smoothly. Except for the second oldest, Jennifer Smith, who died young, the other 3 had their own experiences. Although the 3 siblings claimed that they were supported by social welfare subsidies and part-time work and study, Major General Song Si was skeptical about the results of his investigation after contacting Maya Smith. He was too careless back then. He should not have given up investigating this woman just because Maya Smith and Tang Fan did not have a close relationship. Song Si glanced at Maya Smith with some regret, but did not expect to meet Maya Smith's eyes. Maya Smith was stunned for a moment, then her brows knitted together. It's all thanks to everyone's help that we are where we are today. It's just a pity for Jennifer, as she spoke, Maya Smith's voice choked up. Song Si recalled Jennifer Smith, whose death was mentioned briefly in the report and whose cause of death was a mystery, and a hint of sarcasm appeared on the corner of her mouth. I don't know if it's because her acting is too good, or if she really remembered Jennifer's death. Or maybe it's both. After all, Song Si is really not sure whether a woman who can design her parents' divorce at a young age will kill a burden. The dead are gone. Please accept my condolences, Ms. Maya Smith. Ms. Jennifer will definitely be sad if she knows that you are so sad for her. As soon as these words fell, Song Si clearly felt that Maya Smith's body stiffened for a moment. Song Si suddenly felt that he seemed to be getting closer to the truth. Jennifer's death might really have something to do with her good sister. Thinking of this, Song Si couldn't help but shudder, and her guard against Maya Smith deepened. Maya Smith, who lowered her head to wipe her tears, didn't look much better. After several rounds of fighting, Song Si not only did not leak a single drop of water, but also kept stabbing her in the heart and rubbing salt into the wound. She didn't know much about this young Alliance Major General. But Song Si's understanding of her and the entire Smith family was too deep. This made Maya Smith's heart begin to feel uneasy. Chapter 541 Signal. Jennifer's face appeared in front of her again after being mentioned inadvertently by Song Si. Although more than 40 years have passed, Jennifer's image is still so clear. The strong genes of the Smith family should have the least effect on Jennifer. Unlike their facial features that tend to be Caucasian, Jennifer's appearance is more like that of the yellow race. She has long black and shiny hair, a small face with a bit of baby fat, slightly round almond eyes, and red lips with a smile. She is as delicate as a beautiful oriental doll. If such a look is placed on the young ladies of the capital star, it is definitely a good thing that cannot be better. But it is not a good thing for a divorced child of a second-generation ancestor who has accomplished nothing in a ruined mecha family. Jennifer herself knows it very well, so she habitually hides herself at home and has the good habit of not going anywhere unless it is necessary. However, you can hide for a while, but not for a lifetime. When her mother did not come home for 3 days, the family ran out of ammunition and food, and her younger brothers and sisters were crying with hunger. No matter how reluctant Jennifer was to go out, she had to bite the bullet and go to the First Alliance College to find her sister, Maya Smith, to find a solution. Maya Smith, who could instigate her parents' divorce, was not a good person. To her, there were only 2 kinds of people, those who were helpful to her and those who were not. And judging from the current situation, her so-called brother and sister were undoubtedly the latter. But as she was about to graduate, Maya Smith needed a good reputation. When she was considering how much she needed to take out of her savings to get rid of Jennifer, her mentor took the initiative to stand up and lend her a hand. Although she knew that there was no free lunch in the world and clearly felt that her mentor's eyes were not right when looking at Jennifer, Maya Smith not only did not refuse, but told her mentor Jennifer's light computer account. From that day on, the Smith siblings received help from kind-hearted people, and Maya Smith even got the opportunity to continue her studies. However, Jennifer, who rarely went out, never appeared in front of everyone again. It was not until someone saw the tombstone with a photo of this little girl when they were sweeping the grave that they knew that this beautiful little girl had left the world so early. Thinking of that period of history, Maya Smith's expression was unnatural for a moment. It was not that she felt guilty about Jennifer's death, but when she thought of what the gloomy man did to her after Jennifer left. Although Maya Smith lowered her head, Song-si still felt the unnaturalness in her for a moment. It seems that he needs to inquire about the young Miss Jennifer Smith. Maybe there will be different discoveries. Unfortunately, he was trapped in this place where no one lives, and he couldn't do his work for a while. Otherwise, ask Marshal Song for help? Song-si, who was still hesitating, glanced at his light brain, but was stunned. What attracted Song-si was not the bright smile of Miss Tang Fan on the screensaver, but the full 4-grid star network signal. Full signal? Even with a decoder, this achievement was accomplished on this shabby warship. The meaning of this made Song-si's adrenaline surge. Song-si glanced at Maya Smith, who was still trying her best to act, and quickly opened the light computer and sent a video request. When he saw Song Yuanqi's familiar face appear in the light computer, Song-si hung up without hesitation. Chapter 542. It's not a big deal. Song Yuanqi, who was far away in the Alliance, looked at his computer screen that suddenly went dark, and his expression was too ugly. What does it mean to send him a video and then hang up? Before Song Yuanqi could come to his senses, the computer lit up again. This time, it was not a video, but a text message. On the huge screen, there were only a few words, Jennifer Smith. Although Song Yuanqi had some complaints, he immediately contacted his people and started an investigation. You don't know until you check, and you will be shocked when you check. In the past 300 years in the Alliance, there are actually 168 people named Jennifer Smith. Although Song Yuanqi immediately locked onto the cheap aunt who looked like Tang Fan, with a little baby fat, slightly round almond eyes, and red lips with a smile, he did not take the initiative, but sent all the information he got to Song-si. Song Yuanqi just clicked the send button, but suddenly remembered that Song-si's network was extremely unstable. He hurriedly clicked the withdraw button, but was surprised to find that the message could not be withdrawn. Unable to withdraw? When did Song-si's network become so slippery? Could it be that Song-si's network had a new breakthrough? Once this thought appeared in Song Yuanqi's mind, it could not be shaken off. Marshal Song Yuanqi, who had always been mature and steady, was excited. He trotted all the way to the command room and urgently stopped the search for Jennifer Smith. Instead, he searched for Song-si and others who had been missing for more than half a year. The data analysts were not without opinions on Song Yuanqi's sudden whim. It was just that they endured it again and again because of their marshal's loss of his beloved son. However, they hoped that the result this time would not hurt the man in front of them again. The data analysts sighed and danced their fingers quickly. Within 10 minutes, all the star network bands that appeared near the Cheyenne-Soho star field and the Savage Galaxy were taken out by the data analysts for careful study. Especially the 2 time points when Song Yuanqi was in contact with him, they became the top priority. Cheyenne-Soho star region, no. Savage Galaxy, no. Just when everyone thought that this search would be fruitless like before, a small red dot actually jumped out. It was not in Cheyenne-Soho star region, nor in Savage Galaxy, but in Dibin Galaxy and Cheyenne star region between the two. This unexpected discovery successfully shocked the data analysts in the room. In an instant, the command room fell into deathly silence. Marshal Song Yuanqi, who is always calm and composed, shed 2 lines of tears in excitement. He blinked in disbelief, making sure that the red dot in front of him was not his own illusion, and then hurriedly wiped away his tears, trembling with his hands, pointed the light brain at the large screen in the command room, and took a difficult photo of the coordinates on it and sent it out. 3 seconds later, looking at the read mark, Song Yuanqi finally smiled for the first time in more than half a year. He finally found his only child. This was the best news in half a year. He had been worried for half a year, and at this moment, he could finally put his mind at ease. Of course, Song-si, who received the news from Song Yuanqi, felt the same way. Compared to his unexpected return to the Alliance, other things seemed to be nothing. Chapter 543 Handkerchief. After searching for a long time, you will find it without any effort. When the guess became a reality, Song-si's excitement was beyond words. He couldn't hide it. Such obvious emotional fluctuations were obvious to the actor Maya Smith. Her uneasy heart sank to the bottom of the valley, and her crying became more real. Song-si glanced at Maya Smith, who was crying sadly, and admired her for crying for half an hour without stopping. It's a pity that even crying, making a fuss, and hanging oneself have to choose the target. For Song-si, Maya Smith's specialty is to quarrel, and quarrel again. He didn't stir up any waves in his heart. In fact, he was a little irritated. He pushed his back teeth, clicked his tongue, and gave up the idea of talking. He asked Xia Adao to accompany him and left in a chick way. Looking at Song-si's receding figure, Maya Smith almost bit her teeth to pieces. She cried for half an hour, which was very hard for her. Song didn't even say a word of comfort, and didn't even give her a bottle of drinking water. Now he just walked away, not taking her seriously at all. Maya Smith's eyes flashed with a trace of resentment, so fast that people couldn't catch it. When Xia Adao, who didn't know what was going on, came in to take over, Maya Smith's face was only filled with sorrow, and she wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes slowly with an antique handkerchief. The beauty was like a beautiful picture, attracting people to appreciate it. But Xia Adao didn't understand the situation, and didn't even look at Maya Smith. His eyes fell directly on the antique handkerchief embroidered with the matter, and he didn't move away. Maya Smith, who was still waiting for someone to comfort her so that she could get downhill, lost control of her expression and stood there in a daze. She felt terrible. She, a living person, is not as important as a handkerchief, right? Maya Smith paused in wiping her tears, and the handkerchief just floated away from her delicate fingers. Seeing that the snow-white handkerchief was about to fall into the arms of Mother Earth, Xia Adao took action as expected. He picked up the handkerchief full of tears, unfolded it gently, and carefully observed the pattern of matter for a few seconds, sneering, "In the Alliance, pure handmade handkerchiefs are extremely rare, with an annual output of no more than 5,000. Embroidered handkerchiefs are even rarer, with an annual output of no more than 300. High-quality fine handkerchiefs are all produced by everyone, and they are hard to come by. The embroidery on this handkerchief of Ms. Maya Smith's hand is one of them, with fine stitches and lifelike. It is a bit wasteful to use it to wipe tears, and it is even more distressing to drop it on the ground." Xia Adao's straightforward words surprised Maya Smith. She likes handmade products that can show her status, and handkerchiefs are one of them. Most people who knew her habit, and many people gave her handkerchiefs. On weekdays, she kept them in her space buckle and didn't take them seriously. Today, she was acting in the middle of a play, and she casually pulled a handkerchief from her space buckle, not paying much attention to it. Who would have thought that she would actually pull out a rare treasure? What she didn't expect was that among the rough guys in the expeditionary army, there was actually such a person who knew the value of the goods. It was really mad. Chapter 544 Dead. Maya Smith stared at the handkerchief in Xia Adao's hand, not knowing whether to take it or not. Seeing Maya Smith's tangled eyes, Xia Adao smiled unkindly. He saw clearly the look Song-si gave him before the handover. Keeping an eye on this girl and delaying time as much as possible were no big deal for him. You can't find fault with an egg, but finding faults in a middle-aged woman is easy, isn't it? Next, Xia Adao started the game of finding faults. Maya Smith never thought that she would have so many flaws. Every time Xia Adao said something, Maya Smith's face darkened. From the beginning to the end, Maya Smith's face turned as black as the bottom of a pot. When Xia Adao finally took a breath and Maya Smith finally relaxed, she looked up and saw a black object suddenly appearing next to her, as well as the beautiful pattern on the black object. The logo of a roaring lion stepping on a ball looks so familiar. Isn't that the logo of the Expeditionary Force? In other words, the dark eye next to her is a warship sent by the Expeditionary Force. At this moment, Maya Smith finally came to her senses and could no longer care about acting. She rushed directly to the window of the starship. Through a thin layer of metal window, Maya Smith clearly saw that 4 small warships with the emblem of the Expeditionary Force surrounded her warship in a siege. Song-si, who had set a trick on her, was wearing an olive-green expeditionary military uniform. The golden shoulder straps representing the Major General of the Alliance shone brightly in the sun. The golden buttons and the row of military medals were even more golden and dazzling. Feeling Maya Smith's sight, Song-si deliberately turned his head to look at her. The eyes were dark and sharp, without a trace of warmth, as if looking at a corpse. At this moment, Maya Smith finally realized that she was a prisoner. She quickly turned on her light brain and clicked a few times quickly. However, what was waiting for her was a busy tone. Maya Smith looked at her own light brain in disbelief, stunned for a long time, and finally put her hand down with a bitter smile. That man never keeps useless people. Why does she think she will be an exception? She should have thought of it the moment the giant battleship was breached and the moment SYNOPSIS pulled her out of the crowd. She would be ruthlessly abandoned by him like thousands of chess pieces that failed in their missions. When she thought of this, Maya Smith felt a dull pain in her heart. She covered her chest tightly, looked at the majestic lion, and raised a smile. That smile, solidified on her face, looked particularly ghostly. How to describe it? It was probably a smile of finally being relieved. When people are unlucky, drinking cold water will get stuck in their teeth. Xiao, who finally had time to drink a sip of water and had not had time to put down the cup, deeply understood the meaning of this sentence. Seeing that the mission was about to be completed, the mission object fell in front of him. This kind of thing was also the first time that the knowledgeable Xiao classmate encountered it. Xiao couldn't help but curse bad luck. Then he turned on his laptop with a sullen face and reported everything to SYNOPSIS. SYNOPSIS listened to Xiao's report with a stern face and hurried back. Chapter 545 Pickup. SYNOPSIS listened to Xiao's report with a stern face, and hurried back. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Maya Smith leaning against the wall motionless. He narrowed his eyes, calmly stretched out 2 fingers, and approached the side of Maya Smith's neck. The carotid artery pulsation disappeared, the heartbeat stopped, and the big devil he thought was actually so quietly died. This matter, no matter how you look at it, it seems mysterious. He tilted his head to look at Xiao. Xiao shrugged and spread his hands. In order to hold Maya Smith back, he even used all his strength. Seeing the warship arrive and the mission basically completed, he couldn't help but drink a sip of water. Who knew it would turn out like this? It can't be that he drank the wrong water. No. Xiao pulled SYNOPSIS and said, before Maya Smith died, she opened her light brain and dialed a video. Before Xiao finished speaking, SYNOPSIS had taken the lead and unlocked Maya Smith's light brain. Unfortunately, he was a step too late. With the death of Maya Smith, her optical brain also fell into a frozen state. Thawing is not an easy task. At least, for now, it is not an easy task. But will SYNOPSIS give up so easily? He took a deep look at Maya Smith and sneered, after notifying the marshal, I notified the Gile Star. According to the time, Tao Kingxi and Afan should be here soon. You go pick them up for me. After following SYNOPSIS for so many years, no one knows what kind of person his boss is better than Xiao. SYNOPSIS' words went around in Xiao's head and were translated by him as, fortunately, I have prepared in advance and notified Tao Kingxi and Afan. Take Tao Kingxi to this guy for me to see if he is really dead or fake dead, and whether there are any other clues on his body. By the way, let Afan see if there are other ways to open this optical brain. Xiao hurriedly responded, ran out of the door, passed through the bottom of the giant battleship that had already been destroyed, drove the mecha, and ran all the way towards the direction of the Elysium Star to pick up people. Since Tao Kingxi and Tang Fan are here, can his wife be far away? Comrade Xiao will spare no effort to see his wife earlier, even if it is 1 second earlier. This kind of good thing that can both make up for one's mistakes and fall in love, please give me a dozen. With Xiao's unremitting efforts, the marginal areas of the 2 sides of the barren planet met in victory. The moment they saw Xiao, Tao Kingxi, Tang Fan, Zhao Jin and Song Tong, who were stopped at the edge of the wasteland, breathed a sigh of relief. Although video communication is advanced, it can't explain everything clearly. SYNOPSIS was too busy and didn't explain too much. He just told them to rush over as soon as possible. But they rushed to the edge of the wasteland, but Tangang stopped them here on the grounds that there were too many mutant creatures ahead and the risk factor was too high. They were in a dilemma and were as anxious as ants on a hot pot, but Tangang refused to let go. Now, SYNOPSIS sent Xiao over, and the 4 people were no longer panicked. They immediately handed the important task of communication to Xiao. The 4 people were leisurely drinking tea, eating dried meat and watching the fun. The look of watching the fun without minding the big deal made Tangang laugh. There was no need for Xiao to speak. He just waved his hand and gave this group of ungrateful people to Xiao. Chapter 546 Optical Brain. I thought that with Tangang's concern for Tang Fan, Xiao would have a chance to sharpen his sword. But I didn't expect Tang Gang to let go so easily. Everyone was stunned. It wasn't until Xiao Dao led everyone around the barren planets in twists and turns, without stepping on landmines, and brought the 4 people safely to the bottom of the warship, that everyone came to their senses. It turned out that it was not Xiao Dao's good words, but because he was strong enough to drag 4 people alone. However, soon, everyone's attention was attracted by the big guy in front of them. As a half-expert, Tang Fan identified the model parameters of this thing at a glance, and based on the traces of damage on the bottom and the distribution of mutant creatures on the barren planet, he roughly restored the truth. As the only layman, Miss Tao Qingxi had only one thought in her eyes and mind. Is this a warship? The obvious tremor in Tao Qingxi's voice silently explained her excitement. Xiao Dao hurriedly avoided Tang Fan's half-smiley eyes and nodded heavily. We encountered a warship by chance during our patrol. However, the situation is not ideal. Seeing Xiao Dao's vague words, Song Tong immediately stepped forward to smooth things over. It's just a warship that was sunk by you. There's no need to mobilize a large number of troops to call us here. You have to know that our time is very precious. Looking at his wife's pretending to be unruly, Xiao Dao's mouth corners have a smile. But before he could speak, he caught a glimpse of a tall figure from the corner of his eye. Xiao Dao closed his mouth silently and saluted in the direction of the person who came. Song Si nodded slightly to Xiao Dao, turned around and stuffed a light computer into Tang Fan's hand. This is a frozen light computer. Can you see for me if you can get the relevant information inside without destroying it? Song Si's magical operation of talking about business as soon as he met after not seeing each other for a long time shocked everyone. Especially Song Tong, who was about to say something joking, stared with his eyes as big as copper bells. Only Miss Tang Fan, the person involved, was not surprised at all and calmly entered the working mode. She carefully took the optical computer, checked it carefully, and pursed her lips. I have not studied optical computers, I can only try my best. Song Si raised his hand and rubbed the top of Tang Fan's head, and said softly, just do your best, don't put too much pressure on yourself. If it doesn't work, Song Si's eyes moved away from Tang Fan a little and fell on the tall man next to him. Zhao Jin sighed and took over the conversation. If it doesn't work, there's still me. Hearing this, Tang Fan's frown relaxed a little, and he handed the exquisite optical computer in his hand to Zhao Jin in a proper manner. Zhao Jin took it over, holding the optical computer inlaid with the gold and silver, and whispered to Tang Fan about science. As a true genius, Zhao Jin is still quite capable. Optical computers are considered important items in the Alliance, but in this place where there is no signal from the star network, they are actually not very meaningful. Zhao Jin has seen many optical computers, whether they belong to living people or dead people, simple or luxurious. Every year, he disassembles hundreds or even hundreds of optical computers for fun. After disassembling so many optical computers, Zhao Jin naturally has a better understanding of optical computers. Seeing that Tang Fan is humble and eager to learn, Zhao Jin did not hide anything and spoke very clearly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547, Bugs Again. Zhao Jin spoke seriously, and Tang Fan listened attentively, and the two of them soon entered a state of selflessness. Seeing this, Song Si breathed a long sigh of relief, and his originally stern face suddenly collapsed and turned livid. Even Tao Qingxi, who didn't know Song Si very well, could see at a glance that the current situation was not optimistic. But even so, Song Si still didn't want to make his little girl worry, and he held on with all his strength and acted hard to get Tang Fan out of the way. Favor, it's real favor. Love, it's absolutely true love. At this moment, whether it was Song Tong or Tao Qingxi, a trace of envy and jealousy flashed in their hearts. However, both of them were sensible people, and they quickly pulled themselves out of this emotion, followed Song Si's pace, and walked towards the battleship hall where Maya Smith was imprisoned. Before entering the hall, Tao Qingxi and Song Tong heard the buzzing sound of countless bees flapping their wings, one after another, which made people's scalps numb. Even Song Si couldn't help but slow down. Tao Qingxi stepped forward, stretched out his hand to stop Song Si, and said coldly, "It's come to this, there's no need to rush now, you tell us what you know first." so that we can both have an idea. Song Si stopped, thought for a while, nodded slowly, and told everything from the moment he saw the warship. When it came to the interrogation part, Xia Adao took over the baton. Xia Adao finally finished speaking, carefully glanced at the buzzing hull, swallowed hard, and looked at Song Si eagerly. Not to mention Tao Qingxi and Song Tong, even he wanted to know what kind of things were occupying the warship hull now. Xia Adao's eyes were too superficial, and Song Si understood it at once. He held his forehead and smiled bitterly, then slowly opened his mouth. Maya Smith's death was strange. I was curious about who Maya Smith sent the video request to, and how the other party killed her. So I took off her optical computer and wanted to restore the content through technical means. However, before I could figure out what was going on, I heard a strange sound. I looked carefully and found a bulge the size of a fingernail at the position of her heart. In a few seconds, the bulge expanded to the size of a fist. Seeing that the situation was not right, I quickly organized everyone to retreat to the nearby warship. As soon as everyone left, the bulge that had expanded to the size of a ball burst open. A group of small black insects crawled out of her body. I took a few photos in a hurry and ran out. I immediately went to the Star Network for comparison, but I didn't find any matching information. Hearing this, the three people couldn't help but gasp. Thinking of Jim Field's miserable condition and the sudden insect nest, the three people had some not-so-good guesses in their hearts. Tao Qingxi hurriedly connected to Song Si's computer, asked for the photos of the little bugs, zoomed in, and observed them carefully. After looking at them for a long time, she frowned and asked anxiously, "Have you used the paralysis potion to fight against mutant creatures?" Song Si shook his head. The situation on the front line was tight, and he couldn't use the paralysis potion, an emergency substance, casually when the situation was unclear, even as a commander. Tao Qingxi rubbed his back teeth and said viciously, "There are priorities, use it on those guys in the hall first." Chapter 548, Refusing to Admit Mistakes. Tao Qingxi had already spoken. What else could Song Si do? He took out all the paralysis potions in the space buckle, calculated the dosage, and held it in his left hand. His right hand was not idle either, holding a hole puncher and constantly gesturing at the outer wall of the battleship. Tao Qingxi's expression suddenly became much better. Major General Song is so calculating. Song Si was only thinking about the possibility of the little bugs flying out, and directly ignored Tao Qingxi's praise. Tao Qingxi, who was ignored, looked at the focused Song Si and couldn't help rolling her eyes. She directly took the hole puncher in Song Si's hand, slightly adjusted the diameter, and pressed it at the outer wall. Seeing a hole the size of a potion bottle appear out of thin air, Song Si took the potion in his hand and stuffed it in without hesitation. The hole was neither too big nor too small, just enough to accommodate a medicine bottle. The sound of the outer wall and the bottle body rubbing against each other was a bit harsh, but it sounded so beautiful to Song Si's ears. Song Si silently gave Tao Qingxi a thumbs up, and Tao Qingxi nodded modestly. Professional matters should be handled by professionals like us. Song Si didn't know how to respond to this. Fortunately, the medicine that had just been inserted had almost evaporated, so Song Si quickly turned his head and pretended to change the medicine. Embarrassment, silent embarrassment, overflowed everywhere. Tao Qingxi's face suddenly turned red with anger. Song Si caught a glimpse of it from the corner of his eye, and he didn't dare to look back. Such a big person, standing there with a few medicines, was like grabbing a life-saving straw. But this medicine has a limit. Song Si inserted one by one, and it will eventually reach the end. Seeing that the last one was also inserted by him, Song Si, who had nothing in his hands, panicked. The obviously tense atmosphere suddenly became funny. Xiao Dao could still hold back, but Song Tong laughed out loud without giving him face. "Keep stuffing it. Why don't you continue?" Song Si was also impressed by Song Tong's ability to talk about things that were not related to the topic. He glared at Song Tong fiercely and didn't want to say a word. Seeing Song Si being humiliated, Tao Qingxi felt much better. Her face was no longer red, and her anger was no longer raging. Seeing that this trick worked, Song Tong's eyes lit up. She pushed Song Si away and said in a cold voice, "You are a professional who stuffs medicine bottles. Once you are done, get out of the way and don't delay my work as a professional observer. If you delay things, can you afford to pay for it?" After that, Song Tong took out his own equipment and moved it next to the small hole. Tao Qingxi quickly grabbed her and said with a smile, From my professional drilling perspective, the diameter of your instrument is slightly larger than the diameter of the medicine bottle. Let me go first. Song Tong touched his nose awkwardly and took a half step back. Unfortunately, he stepped on Song Si's foot, causing Song Si to gasp in pain. This time, Xia Adao couldn't hold back any longer and laughed out loud. Tao Qingxi, who was adjusting the hole puncher, couldn't help but curl his lips. Looking at Song Si's livid face, Song Tong felt guilty. She handed the instrument in her hand to Tao Qingxi, whispered "I'll leave it to you," and ran out in a hurry. The look of refusing to admit her mistakes was inexplicably consistent with Song Si. Tao Qingxi pursed her lips and muttered, "We are indeed a family." Song Si, who understood the hidden meaning, was stunned there and couldn't say a word. Xia Adao, who had been eating melon for a long time, laughed out loud again. Chapter 549 Disgusting. Xia Adao, who was laughing happily, was naturally ruthlessly punished by Major General Song Si. But this little movement could not affect the culprit Tao Qingxi at all. She aimed the adjusted hole punch at the center of the medicine bottle, and the next second, a slightly larger hole appeared in front of her. While moving the hole punch away, she quickly stuffed the observation instrument in. After finally getting it done, Tao Qingxi's forehead was already covered with dense beads of sweat. The sweat beads crossed her eyelids, making her blink unconsciously. She frowned, wiped off the sweat beads, and hurriedly put her eyes to the front of the instrument. It is worthy of being the latest product of the Alliance, a high-end product specially used by the military, and every corner within 270 degrees can be seen at a glance. But Tao Qingxi only took a rough look, covered her mouth, ran to the wall not far away, and vomited with a wow. Seeing this, Song Si silently withdrew his hand from the knife and walked quickly to the instrument. At a glance, Song Si couldn't help but frown. As a professional soldier, he had seen many dead people in his life, but it was the first time that someone died as tragically as Maya Smith. Even Jim Field had to admit defeat in front of her. At least, Jim Field had a complete body, right? But what about Maya Smith? Her whole body was crawling with black bugs, and there was no trace of skin at all. Only black holes and dark red could be seen. Song Si couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If he had inserted the medicine later, would he have seen only a skeleton instead of this miserable situation? Unfortunately, there is no regret medicine in the world. However, there are still antiemetics. Ms. Tao Qingxi got herself one. Ms. Tao Qingxi, a true warrior who could face the blood, barely controlled her churning stomach and stood up bravely and returned to her post. After confirming that the bugs had fallen asleep under the effect of the drug, Tao Qingxi bravely opened the door of the battleship hall, carefully observed it, and walked in. The transparent box looted from Jim Field's laboratory came in handy at this moment. All the black bugs were put into it without missing a single one. When the lid was closed, in addition to Tao Qingxi, Song Si and Xia Adao also ran to the other side of the wall to vomit. Antiemetics can soothe the body, but not the heart. After all the black bugs were taken away, Maya Smith looked like a ghost, not to mention Tao Qingxi. Even Song Si and Xia Adao couldn't stand it. 10% of the internal organs were intact, and there was not a piece of good meat outside. The occasional meat and blood clots exposed under the gorgeous handmade clothes made people feel uncomfortable physically and mentally. As long as the mind is not abnormal, no one can stand this. But even if she felt nauseous, Tao Qingxi still chose to face it bravely after vomiting. In order not to add burden to others, she silently set up the video equipment, took a deep breath, and then walked towards Maya Smith. She trembled with her hands and pulled open the blood-stained dress, and ran out for the third time. Tao Qingxi really understood what it felt like to vomit until there was nothing in the stomach, not even a little liquid. Chapter 550, Reasoning. Seeing Tao Qingxi like that, Xia Adao, who always prided himself on being brave, lost the courage to explore the matter. Even Song Si hesitated. If I don't look at it, I'm a little worried. If I look at it, it's really a little disgusting. Vomiting once is embarrassing enough. If it happens again, where will his face be? Before Song Si finished struggling, Tao Qingxi had sorted out his emotions and walked into the hall again. Although it is somewhat disrespectful to cut a dead, Tao Qingxi still cut without mercy after bowing 3 times. Fortunately, Song Si grasped the timing just right. Although only 1 in 10 parts of Maya Smith's body remained, at least there was a little bit of everything that could be studied. If it was a step later, Tao Qingxi could only look up at the sky. There is no way, the materials are not enough. No matter how talented Tao Qingxi is, he can't create something out of nothing, right? Although some data may not be so accurate, the time spent is obviously much less. Looking at the data in her hand, Tao Qingxi nodded with satisfaction, mercifully gave Maya Smith a decent look, and took a new set of clothes for her to wear. Tao Qingxi would never admit that she was afraid of being disgusted by Maya Smith's corpse for the fourth time. After taking off all the protective gear, Tao Qingxi took 3 luxurious showers. After making sure that the smell on her body was completely washed off, she ran to Song-si to report with satisfaction. The first thing she said was, Maya Smith's death was not an accident. Although Song-si had already made up his mind, he couldn't help but feel his heartbeat speed up when he heard this. What evidence do you have? Tao Qingxi clicked on her light brain and rummaged through a pile of pictures for a long time before dragging one out and placing it in front of Song-si. These are Maya Smith's internal organs. Although each part has traces of being eaten by insects, most of them still have remnants. Moreover, the remaining parts are mostly related to their volumes. There's only one exception. Song-si sighed and tapped Maya Smith's heart with his finger. Her heart is the one with the least remnants among all the internal organs. Tao Qingxi nodded. Not only that, the remaining parts of her heart have also been displaced to varying degrees. Although I can't clearly point out the method of committing the crime, I can still make a reasonable assumption that it was homicide. Although Song-si did not see any signs of heart displacement, he still agreed with Tao Qingxi's conclusion Maya Smith died of homicide. Then, the question is here. Who killed Maya Smith? How did the murderer kill her under Xia Adeo's nose? Facing Song-si's 2 questions, Tao Qingxi just shrugged his shoulders and spread his hands. She is a pharmacist, okay? Fortunately, Song-si was just asking casually and did not force Tao Qingxi to give an answer. After Tao Qingxi showed his intention to see him off, Song-si left Tao Qingxi's site and went to visit the captives with Xiao Dao. Although the warship was large, there were not too many staff members inside. Song-si invited them directly to a room. After a brief greeting, Song-si finally got to the point. The high-definition video he had dug out from Tao Qingxi, the kind with explanations, was placed in front of the captives. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.